Alright guys, I'm going to try to show you how to service this 510. When I build these things, I actually use 6mm wrenches. I've got one that I grinded down to an extra thin, and that's how I use them when I build them. But I mean, most people aren't going to have 6mm wrenches laying around. So I'm going to show you how to do this with simple needle nose pliers. They don't really need to be anything fancy. About the hardest part of the whole thing is trying to find something thin enough to be able to grab the top nut. Basically, you want to hold the top nut and crack them loose. Once you crack them loose, it'll spin off by finger. Take the first nut off, pull the wire terminal off. That's why I leave the wires extra long, just to make it easier to service here. Spin the second nut off. I left an addy on it because that pushes the pin down a little. Makes it a little easier to grab the top nut. Then slide it out. And that's basically it. Now, that's the O-ring. If you need to change the O-ring, just pay attention to the way this thing goes. There's a washer that goes on first. The O-ring goes first, then the white washer, then the spring. So remove the spring, remove the white washer and try not to lose it, and then roll the O-ring off. Okay, reinstallation is about the same. Oh, there goes my camera. I need another piece of duct tape. Okay. Reinstallation, pretty much the same. Put the O-ring on. White washer. Then the spring. Drop the assembly in place. Again, I'm going to use an addy to just hold it in. Spin the first nut on. And now here is where you come to your point of adjustment. With most addies, what I would normally recommend is put an addy all the way in, then turn it one complete revolution out. Let me loosen this nut first to show you what I mean. Okay, sink an addy all the way in, then rotate it back out one full turn, and that's your adjustment. Tighten the first nut up till it just touches at that point. Slide the wire terminal on. Then put the second nut back on. At that point, I'm going to screw the addy back in just to make it a little easier to grab that top nut. Make sure when the addy is all the way seated, you got a little bit of a gap there. That little bit of a gap is the amount of travel you have on the pin. And then hold the top nut. Yeah, a little difficult to do with the camera in my face here, but you get the idea. Okay. In the end, when you're done, you want to make sure that you have that little bit of throw. You don't want the addy to be all the way down and not have any little gap showing there, because that's your stroke. That's how much travel you have. If you do reduce it down to a very small amount of travel, like I'm showing you here, you won't have any leaks. Even when you take addies on and off, you won't have any leaks because you're not letting the pin come up high enough for any juice to get under the O-ring. The reason why some of mine may get a little bit of juice when you take an addy on and off is mostly because when I build these things, I try to leave as much room as possible. So even the shortest 510s out there still get a good connection. But if you want to try and make it where you don't have that problem, just find your shortest 510 out of all your addies and use that one when you do an adjustment. And I mean, if you really find your shortest one, you could actually adjust it to where it's only a half a turn. And that's pretty much enough. If you do it like that, if you do it where you don't have a whole lot of stroke there, you're not going to get any leaks. Even taking addies on and off. I mean, this 510 is actually really good when it comes to that. But again, when I build them, I try to leave as much stroke as possible. So even the shortest 510s are going to have a connection. I don't want anyone to have a problem saying, oh, well, this addy doesn't connect on my mod. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it doesn't get much simpler than that. Again, if you did want to go out and search around and get some 6mm wrenches, that would make it a complete breeze. But it's not absolutely necessary. I was actually thinking about trying to source some cheap 6mm wrenches on Amazon, and maybe even including a pair with each mod. But I haven't really found the right ones yet, and the truth is that's just going to wind up driving the cost up a little, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But I will keep my eyes open and try and find a good source for some cheap 6mm wrenches, because that does make it a lot easier. But even without, I mean, any kind of needle nose, this will work. This will work. The truth is you could use one needle nose, and then on the other side you could even use a regular pair of pliers. A really thin, skinny needle nose, something like this, probably wouldn't be strong enough. It's going to make you slip a lot more. I mean, if you're going to be doing this without a camera in between you and the mod, so it's going to be a little easier too. But basically, it's as simple as that. It really doesn't get much easier than that. And that's it. Any questions, let me know.